Okay, so this, when edited, is going to be a tutorial, hopefully a full tutorial series, on how to draw a plane, because I saw on YouTube there weren't that many great tutorials. I won't really make any kind of long intro, and this is not scripted, this is just gonna be lightly edited and probably not gonna be of very high quality, but I want to share the few things that I do know about drawing planes. Yeah, let's begin. So I'll be just drawing this on a 3000 pixel times 2000 pixel canvas because we all know that's the golden ratio. Just kidding, that's a joke. Please don't harass me in the comments. But yeah, so this is the first part. It's gonna be about drawing the hull of the plane. It's very simple. I mean, when you get the hang of it, it's gonna be very, very useful, and it's gonna be the base on which all the other parts of the plane go, so it is kind of important. They do have a design in mind. So now let's begin. First off, I will have a layer ready, and on it I will quickly just draw a basic shape for a hull. This might seem a little complicated, but when I draw it, I will go through the process that I went through to design this, so you can kind of follow along. The idea is I'm making a basic shape, and I'm not really thinking about it that much as if it was 3D. I just wanted to have a general perspective and everything. So I will draw a very basic hull. I will try to make it more tapered, aka just curved near the end, and think about the aerodynamics of this. I will probably make a follow-up video somewhere near the end of this tutorial series if it ever takes off. To kind of address some of the more logical things that should go into designing planes and stuff. But okay, this one is not about that. So I have drawn the first segment of the hull, or not the segment, the main hull. That's the best way to call it. This is an entire hull. And the idea with this is it's just supposed to be a rough sketch, but it is supposed to have you can't really visualize it that well. Like, you can see it, but you can't really understand how it's placed in 3D space. So now that we have this basic hull set down, or basically just the outline of it, I'm going to add some lines which kind of suggested the cross section. So first you imagine the hull as if it was sideways, which is something like this. And then you placed it into 3D space with a bit of an interesting curve to it. And now you're going to be looking at it as if you were to look at one of the segments from here and visualize it at the front. So that would basically be a almost tear shape like here. Or if we want, we can make it a bit wider, since this plane isn't really supposed to be that light of a plane. So we want a beefier hull and not that thin one. So now, for example, I want to add this cross section. I mark what the top and bottom are gonna be. Of course, the bottom of the hull isn't this, because this is not fully looked at from the profile. We connect these when what we will consider vertical later on. So it doesn't necessarily always have to be upwards, but it almost is completely vertical in this example. And now we just add some other lines, and basically just adding them to measure out the different parts where the hull will be. Do this however you think is best, and always remember that this line is going to be shorter than this line, because this is not an orthogonal perspective. So it is kind of things get smaller as they go into the distance. So I'm gonna create a few of these points, 2 of them to be more exact, and I'm going to connect them with the actual almost tear shape. I'm not doing this exactly as in this example, but that's fine because I'm just finding what I think looks the best. And now we see this is a bit incorrect, of course, and I'm gonna do a very non-professional thing, and I'm just gonna grab the entire thing and upscale it. So it fits the frame, because I realized that the shape is still correct. I just didn't have this top part positioned properly on the top. So that means that this goes like this, and yeah. So now, usually the more you draw planes, the less you're gonna have to do these, but early on I really encourage you do these kinds of like shapes to make the cross sections of the hull easier to visualize. So now we can measure the next point like this, then the next point like this, and this, And this part is a bit less wide because the nose is tapered as well. It's not just a can that's suddenly cut off. We placed a little marking dot here, and I noticed this still needs to be a bit wider because, yeah, because that's how it looks. So now I might have to change up the measurements a bit, which is not that, which might seem imprecise, but it's actually pretty useful because, yeah, it oftentimes the actual first lines you set up are gonna be the incorrect ones. So yeah. However, then there are also cases like this. So yeah, it goes up here, closes up here, and now we have two of these. Now I'm not gonna draw all of them, or maybe I will, but not as as a complex of a way like this. These mostly need to be like a suggestion and not that much of a actual necessary thing to follow. Unless you already have most of the stuff set down, you can play around with a lot of the things like the perspective, the position of different things, and so on, without actually messing the drawing up. So yeah. And now I'm just drawing this line to the front. The line doesn't, this line is just for general measurements, like where the plane is facing. And you can see that it's not really correct because the actual line is supposed to go more in this direction. And this is because I followed these cross section, like the plus parts of the cross sections, which was a bad idea on my end. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take out a ruler. And I'm just gonna generally measure it. This important thing to note, this is not a line connecting the frontmost part of the plane to the backmost part, because you see that won't really go in the direction of the plane. It's more so just a direction where the hull itself is facing. So I'm just gonna draw it like this. Okay. Also, important thing to note for the tutorial, I'm going to be trying to use as little tools as possible that can't be used in real life, to prove that this is the same process that I use on when drawing on paper. Important thing to note though, you won't have the luxury of layers, and that's a pretty big thing, so it might be a bit tedious to delete all of the extra lines you have to draw. So I recommend, if you're drawing on paper, since it's also a lot easier to plan stuff like this on paper, just not to go for as many details on the cross sections and such. So another cross section here. Okay, now let's see, this goes here, this needs to be a line more downwards. Okay, like this. This is generally alright. Like it gets a bit sharper here. It's not the most precise, but you'll see the final product will end up looking pretty good anyways. Now it gets a bit, yeah, a bit smaller here, since this part, which is like the bottommost line, goes up a bit. But the hull is still pretty wide. Okay, so this is the tail segment. One thing Simple Planes has taught me, you can get a bit curvier on these. These don't have to be like a proper triangular, not triangular, but like, they don't need to be a proper shape where it's like a pear shape or anything. You can just go like, yeah. And as you see, they don't really need to have proper spacing. Technically, I would say that I don't even need this one, the first one, or maybe the second one, I think the first one that I made, because it is right in the, like, this part is gonna stay the same mostly. In general, the place where you want the wings to be is the place where you want the hull to kind of go outwards to have a base for them. That's something you draw with the wings most of the time, so this isn't that important. Now, this is the hull itself of the plane. No details have been added yet, but I will make the next part, of course, to, you know, show that. This is a whole new video about, what's it called? It's about perspective, and I'm gonna use 2 additional hulls that need to be drawn on this to kind of explain it. So yeah, that's this video. Make sure to watch the video, that's it, no liking, no subscribing, And you can check out stuff like, yeah, there's a Discord for the project in the channel description, or maybe even the video description if I don't forget. But yeah, thanks for watching, and yeah, I'm gonna go immediately make the next one.